Revelation chapter 18 is a significant passage in the Bible that describes the fall of Babylon the Great, which is often interpreted as a symbol of a corrupt and powerful city or system opposed to God. The chapter is a lament over the destruction of this symbolic Babylon, which is portrayed as a center of luxury, commerce, and idolatry. Before we start, we'd like to ask for your support. If you enjoy our video, please hit the like button. This will help us reach more people and create content for you. Now let's get started with today's video. Revelation chapter 18 is a profound chapter within the book of Revelation, which is the final book of the New Testament. This chapter vividly describes the downfall of Babylon the Great, a symbolic representation of a corrupt, powerful city or system that stands in opposition to God. The fall of Babylon is portrayed as a cataclysmic event, one that shakes the foundations of earthly power, wealth, and luxury, while simultaneously affirming the ultimate sovereignty and justice of God. The chapter is structured around the themes of judgment, lament, and rejoicing, encapsulating the cosmic struggle between good and evil that runs throughout the book of Revelation. The announcement of Babylon's fall. Revelation chapter 18 verses 1 to 3. Revelation chapter 18 begins with a powerful angel descending from heaven, shining with great splendor, and announcing the fall of Babylon the Great. The angel's proclamation is authoritative and resonant, declaring, "Fallen. Fallen is Babylon the Great." This dual repetition emphasizes the certainty and finality of Babylon's demise. The angel goes on to describe Babylon as a dwelling place for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, bird, and detestable animal. This imagery conveys the utter desolation and spiritual corruption that has overtaken the once great city. The angel explains that Babylon's fall is due to her widespread influence over the nations of the earth. She has made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adulteries, symbolizing the pervasive and corrupting influence of Babylon's immorality and idolatry. The kings of the earth have committed adultery with her, and the merchants have grown rich from her excessive luxuries. This description underscores Babylon's role as a center of worldly power, wealth, and moral decay, which has entangled the entire world in her sins. The call to God's people. Revelation chapter 18 verses 4 to 5. Following the angel's proclamation, another voice from heaven issues a solemn call to God's people. "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues." This call to separation is a warning to the faithful to distance themselves from the corrupting influence of Babylon. It reflects the biblical theme of holiness, which involves being set apart from the world's sinful systems and remaining faithful to God. The voice from heaven declares that Babylon's sins have piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. This statement emphasizes that while Babylon may have seemed to prosper in her wickedness, her sins have not gone unnoticed by God. The imagery of sins reaching up to heaven suggests that Babylon's iniquities have accumulated to such an extent that divine judgment is now inevitable. The call to God's people to come out of Babylon serves as both a warning and an invitation to partake in God's deliverance rather than his judgment. The judgment of Babylon. Revelation chapter 18 verses 6 to 8. The judgment of Babylon is described in stark and uncompromising terms. The heavenly voice commands that Babylon be repaid double for what she has done. Reflecting the principle of divine retribution, she is to be given back as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she indulged in. This judgment is not arbitrary but is portrayed as a just and proportional response to Babylon's arrogance, idolatry, and persecution of the righteous. Babylon's self-assured declaration, "I sit enthroned as queen. I am not a widow, I will never mourn," reveals her pride and sense of invincibility. However, her downfall will be sudden and catastrophic. In a single day, her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. This swift and decisive judgment underscores the futility of human pride and the ultimate authority of God over all earthly powers. The lament of the kings of the earth. Revelation chapter 18 verses 9 to 10. The kings of the earth, who once reveled in Babylon's luxuries and power, are the first to mourn her destruction. They stand at a distance, terrified by the torment they witness, and cry out, "Woe! Woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon! In 1 hour your doom has come." The suddenness of Babylon's fall shocks these rulers, who had placed their trust in her stability and wealth. Their lamentation is not born out of love or compassion for Babylon but out of fear and self-interest. The kings mourn the loss of the source of their own power and luxury. They recognize that Babylon's fall signals the end of their own security and prosperity. The repetition of woe conveys their deep despair and helplessness in the face of divine judgment. Their reaction reflects the broader theme of Revelation, the transient nature of earthly power and the inevitable downfall of those who oppose God. The Lament of the Merchants of the Earth, Revelation chapter 18 verses 11 to 17a. The merchants of the earth also mourn Babylon's destruction, but their grief is centered on the loss of their economic wealth. Babylon was the hub of global trade, where merchants grew rich by trading in a vast array of luxurious goods: gold, silver, precious stones, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, and scarlet cloth, among others. The list of goods traded in Babylon, which extends through verses 12 to 13, highlights the opulence and materialism that characterized the city. These merchants weep and mourn, saying, "The great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls, in 1 hour such great wealth has been brought to ruin." Their lament is focused on the economic collapse that Babylon's fall represents. They stand at a distance, like the kings, watching the smoke of her burning, realizing that the source of their immense wealth and luxury has vanished in an instant. The merchants' grief is not out of concern for Babylon itself but for their own financial loss. Their sorrow reveals the emptiness of placing trust in material wealth and the fleeting nature of earthly riches. In a broader sense, their lament underscores the theme of Revelation that materialism and economic exploitation are ultimately unsustainable and subject to divine judgment. The Lament of the Mariners, Revelation chapter 18 verse 17b-19. The lamentation continues with the sailors, ship captains, and all those who earn their living by the sea. Like the kings and merchants, they stand at a distance, watching the city burn and crying out, "Woe! Woe to you, great city, where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin." The Mariners' lament emphasizes the global reach of Babylon's influence and the widespread impact of her fall. The mariners, who were integral to the global trade network centered in Babylon, are devastated by the sudden collapse of the system that enriched them. Their sorrow, like that of the merchants, is rooted in the loss of their livelihood and the realization that their prosperity was ultimately fragile and ephemeral. The repetition of "in 1 hour" underscores the rapidity and totality of Babylon's destruction, leaving no time for recovery or escape. Heaven rejoices over Babylon's fall, Revelation chapter 18 verse 20. In stark contrast to the mourning on earth, there is rejoicing in heaven over Babylon's fall. The heavenly voice calls on the saints, apostles, and prophets to rejoice, for God has judged Babylon with the judgment she imposed on them. This heavenly rejoicing highlights the justice of God's judgment and the vindication of those who suffered under Babylon's oppression. The rejoicing in heaven reflects a broader theme in Revelation, the ultimate triumph of good over evil. While Babylon's fall is a cause for mourning among those who profited from her, it is a cause for celebration among the righteous, who see in her destruction the fulfillment of God's promises and the beginning of a new era of justice and peace. This passage serves as a reminder to believers that, despite the suffering and injustice they may face in this world, God's justice will ultimately prevail. The finality of Babylon's destruction, Revelation chapter 18 verses 21 to 24. The chapter concludes with a symbolic act that underscores the finality of Babylon's destruction. A mighty angel takes up a large millstone and throws it into the sea, declaring, "With such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again." This act symbolizes the complete and irreversible nature of Babylon's downfall. Just as a millstone sinks irretrievably into the depths of the sea, so too will Babylon be utterly destroyed, never to rise again. The angel goes on to describe the silence that will now pervade Babylon. The sounds of harpists, musicians, pipers, and trumpeters will never be heard in her again. No worker of any trade will ever be found in her, and the light of a lamp will never shine in her again. The voices of bridegroom and bride will be silenced. This imagery conveys the total desolation and abandonment of Babylon, which was once a bustling center of life, culture, and commerce. The final verses explain the reasons for Babylon's destruction. Her merchants were the world's great men, and by her magic spell, all the nations were led astray. Babylon's influence was not merely economic but also spiritual, leading people away from God through deception and idolatry. Moreover, she is condemned for the blood of the prophets, saints, and all who have been slain on the earth. Babylon's fall is thus portrayed as divine retribution for her widespread corruption, violence, and opposition to God's people. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. I hope you like this video. Thank you.